All right, just a quick chance to take a look at this last problem on our exam review guide. Problem number 17 was a little complicated for folks, so I wanted to give everybody a chance to kind of understand it clearly. There was some confusion about the wording anyway, so let's get that taken care of. Bob's Sandwich Shop sells sub-sandwiches in 4 different container sizes. He sells them in small. He sells them in medium. He sells them in large, and he sells them in monster size, right? Monster size. So 4 different sizes of sandwich. A monster sandwich weighs 60 ounces. So 60 ounces for a monster size sandwich. Each slice of sandwich, so if I have a little slice right here, that little slice is going to weigh 1 1/2 ounces. All right, so that's pretty understandable. These are our questions. Part A, write an equation. This is very important. I'm asking you to write an equation. Not give me an answer, not solve the problem, but write an equation. And remember, the equations fill this kind of a format. We kind of use this little tool to understand exactly what our equations were going to look like. Remember that equations have to have an equal sign. They have to be equal to something. To find the number of slices in a monster sandwich. And I said most of the time, you're going to be able to put the variable in the first spot. So of these 4 places, we're kind of already given 1. We're going to use y as our variable. So that is going to be the number of slices in the monster sandwich. So the number of slices, now we need to find out what the operation is. And there's one of 2 ways to look at it. We're trying to model this problem. So we want to describe what's going on in the problem. So he's selling sub-sandwiches. A monster sandwich weighs 60 ounces. So we know that ultimately this is going to need to be 60, right? Need to be 60. And we know that each slice of a monster sandwich, now that's going to be 1 1/2. And we know that you're going to multiply these 2 together to get that 60, because whatever the amount of weight for each slice is, if you multiply that by the number of slices, right? If we know that this slice is 1 1/2 ounces, then if we can find all the slices, if we multiply that by the number of slices, then we are going to get the total weight, which was 60. So this is our equation. Part B says to solve that equation and answer how many slices are in a monster sandwich. We've got to find out what y is. Now, I prefer to rewrite this, and most of the time when you see me write these, you're going to see them like this, 1 1/2 times y. It's okay if you leave it like this and solve it, but it's going to be easier if you do it this way. 1 1/2 y is equal to 60. Commutative property. Remember, commutative property says these 2 can swap places if it's multiplication or addition. Doesn't matter the order if it's multiplication or addition only. So, we talked about the 3 steps to solving an equation. Step 1 was get your variable by itself. 2, using inverse operations. Inverse means opposite. So the opposite of the operation that's going on with my variable is that I'm multiplying 1 1/2 times y. So the opposite, or the inverse of multiplication, is division. And I'm going to divide by 1 1/2, because 1 1/2 divided by 1 1/2 is 1. And 1 times y, any number times 1, is itself. So 1 times y is y. Then my third step was, so first step, get the variable by itself. Second step, use inverse operations. Third step, whatever I do to one side over here, I have to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to do that. Over on the left side, I divided by 1 1/2. So over here, I'm going to divide by 1 1/2. And I need to do that calculation. I'm going to shrink my pencil size there. 60 over 1. Remember, I have to convert the whole number of 60 to a fraction, divided by 1 1/2. And I'm going to go ahead and convert this to an improper fraction. That's important. So 2 times 1 is 2. Added to 1 is 3. So 3 over 2. And I'm going to divide that. Well, what's my first step for division? Keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep the first operation, keep the first term, change the division to multiplication, and then flip the last term. All right, 60 times 2, because multiplication, it's no problem. Top times the top and bottom times the bottom. 6 times 2, 60 times 2 is 120. 3 times 1 is 3. Now I know that every division problem, every fraction is a division problem. So 120 divided by 3, 3 goes into 12. I'll just do that right here. 3 goes into 120 how many times? 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract those, I get 0. I bring down my 0. 3 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. I subtract it and I'm done. So 3 goes into 120 40 times. So y is equal to 40. And that is the answer to part B. Now we need to take a look back at part C. Part C here is pretty simple. We'll probably just look at this and figure it out. If a medium sandwich weighs exactly 1/3, weighs exactly 1/3 as much as a monster sandwich, then how much does a medium sandwich weigh? Well, we know that a monster sandwich weighs 60 ounces. 60 ounces right there. And if we know that a medium sandwich weighs exactly 1/3 of that, 1/3 of 60, then that means we're going to divide 60 by 3, and that gives us 20 ounces. So we know that that is 20 ounces. Then we can come on down and we'll do letter D, and I'm going to start over here with letter D. If each piece of a medium sandwich weighs 1 1/4 ounces, so here's my sandwich, here's my medium sandwich here. I know that the medium sandwich weighs 20 ounces, and I know that each slice is going to weigh 1 1/4, 1 1/4 ounces. Then how many pieces are in that large pizza? Well, to find that out, all I have to do is divide 20 by 1 1/4. So I'm going to divide 20 by 1 1/4. And to do that, of course, I have some work to do before I can get started. I've got to make sure I convert each one of these to something that looks like a fraction, right? So to some improper fractions. 20 is the same as 20 over 1. Anytime I have a whole number, to make it into a fraction, all I have to do is write it over 1. Then 1 1/4 has to be converted. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 4 and I'm going to multiply it by the 1. That's going to give me 4. Then I'm going to add, as I come around here, the extra 1, and that's going to give me 5/4. So 5/4 is right here. Then I've got to do my division, and the first step of division is KCF, right? Keep, change, and flip. So I keep the first one, 20 over 1. I change the division to multiplication, and then I flip this guy right here. And that is going to give me 80, top times the top, over 5, bottom times the bottom. So how many times does 5 go into 80? That's the really important question. 5 goes into 80 one time. Goes into, well, let's just divide it right over here and I can show you. 5 goes into 80 one time there. Goes into 8 one time. Subtract that and I get 30. 5 goes into 36 times. So the answer is going to be 16. Letter D, the final answer is going to be 16 slices. And that is the answer to that problem. So if you have any questions at all, let us know. I know that when I was talking with one of the groups, I said, wait, maybe this should be 1/2. And I was wrong. We were just going through it in class, and I got nervous, and I just marked it wrong. So this should be 1/3. It's not supposed to be 1/2, 1/3. And I think that's all I need to say other than where it says large pizza. That is supposed to say medium sandwich. And then it'll make more sense. So if you got confused by that, I apologize. Thanks a lot.